Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video today to talk about the difference between what is a sacred desire and what is a craving. I was inspired to talk about this because of just a few things I've been seeing about how desires are sacred. I think that it is a very true statement that all the desires that are put into our hearts come from source, come from the divine, come from a place that knows what it's talking about, and that fire that burns in our heart to do something, to fulfill a dream that maybe you've had since you were a child, it will just keep coming up for you like throughout your life. And so many of us find that when that pull or that tug is just continuing, that we have to respond to it, we have to follow it. Some people might have what we might call, from like a more egoic mind sense, a midlife crisis, or some people talk about the dark night of the soul. And I think a lot of these are just vehicles through which people find their divine guidance system again that was always within us. There's the conscience, there's this idea of like, I remember when I was younger, I would hear about just listen to that little voice inside and you'll know the right thing to do. And that's really true. It's always there to support us. And some people might call it God or the universe or source. But it's an inner wisdom, right? It's not a turning to an external source for what we should be doing. It's an inner knowing and following that inner knowing with a lot of confidence. And so that can be confusing if you are someone who has turned to distraction instead of presence, which I just did a video on presence, and I will do a video on distraction in the future. So if you're watching this in the future, I might have already done that video. But if you have turned to distraction because of the pain of presence, because of trauma, because of the myriad of reasons of why we turn to distraction, then it might be hard to trust that inner knowing. You might actually have a very chaotic relationship with listening to yourself because of craving. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because craving and desire are totally different. And I think for a long time, I thought they were the same thing. In Buddhism, they talk about desire as the root of all suffering. And so maybe that's just kind of like a linguistic, what's the word I'm looking for here? Semantic thing. But I digress. Either way, that's why I wanted to make the video, because it's important that we distinguish and have discernment there, because desire and craving are different, or at least a sacred desire. I'll say a sacred desire, because a craving is an immediate sensation. It is something that feels very urgent and very rushed. And I've heard this talked about in the realm of like emotional regulation, that when something feels really urgent in our bodies and we have to do it right that minute, that's usually an indicator that it's a trauma response. That's usually an indicator that it is something that is not actually in alignment with our highest good. Of course, there are times when we have to follow that urge, like if adrenaline kicks in a situation to get your butt out of a situation. Fight, flight, or freeze can be a very, very useful response to have. And that's why not all, or any really trauma responses are bad. It's not about them being bad. They come from a very survival oriented place, but we're trying to move beyond survival, right? So when we notice that we're operating out of survival, when we have that urgency in our body, especially when we assess and there actually is no immediate threat in our vicinity, we're actually not needing to kick somebody's butt to get out of the situation, keep ourselves safe. It just feels like we have a craving to do something so bad, and it feels so urgent. That's when we have to utilize presence. So go to my presence video, watch that video if you want more support on like what presence is, what it looks like in the body, how to overcome some like mental blocks around that, because I just did that video. But yeah, come into presence, slow down, and pause, right? Because it's never a stopping, it's just like a pausing and going. Right, so it feels really urgent for me to smoke this cigarette right now or text this person. That's probably a big craving for a lot of people. Relational addiction is very real. But I am noticing that that may not be the most supportive thing for me. I'm noticing, actually, you may not even jump to that place. You may just get to, I'm noticing that this feels dysregulating. This feels like something I have to do and not something I'm feeling called to do. And so I'm just going to take a minute and see if I still feel called to do this in an hour, in a day, in a week, in a month. Because the thing about sacred desire, even when we really want to shut it out, even when like the rest of the world is telling us it's wrong for us, it never goes away. And so that's how you know it's your calling. That's how you know it's something that you have to do. It's something that Source wants us to do. And it is a knowing, and it is a very grounded place of knowing this is what's right for me. And meditating can be one of the best ways to come to that, because you will feel your whole body just is completely relaxed and you're completely aware of what it is that you need to do. And it will usually give you a good guidance on like just the first step to take on that journey, because that's all we have to focus on is just the next right thing, the next step right in front of us. You don't have to know how you're going to get to the end goal, just taking the next step, right? So I think that is mostly what I wanted to say about sacred desire, and the train is coming, so I'm really going to have to stop here. But yeah, look within, see what your inner being says, and let me know, what is your sacred desire?